Good afternoon, everybody. This is Laura from Healthy Carnivore. I'm going to go over a little bit of my backstory. I'm going to try to shorten it up because it seems like it's so long. In 1991, I was 20, 313 pounds. After following my doctor's advice, I had gained 60 to get to that 313. Was offered Lipitor. Actually, he wrote out a paper script. I refused to do that. I did take it. Didn't want to be on a medication at 20 and have to live with it for my whole life. So went to the library and looked at all the old medical journals and veterinarian books and found very quickly that my problem was sugar, starches, carbohydrates, all the things. And just kind of lived accordingly. Went home, got rid of all the white foods, and started eating just out of my garden and then what we hunted and fished. Did that for several years. Then, of course, 26 years into keto, they came out with keto treats, and I am not a moderator. So if something tastes like a chocolate chip cookie bar, two is better than one. So I destroyed my gut with the maltodextrin and some of the fibers that they put in there and the sweeteners. So the last 2 years of that was pretty miserable. So I did complete 28 years of keto and then went carnivore. And it'll be 7 years in this February. So that will be my 7 year carniversary. So that is kind of how I started. Then I went into nursing. Um, I've been in nursing for over 23 years, 24 almost, and have found that we have a very broken medical system, which I knew prior to going in, which I think kind of helped me when I was studying. It was like I knew what the truth was and I knew what the book said. And I knew who wrote the books and who paid for the books. So I was like, I'll answer that question on the test, but then I'm going to move on and do the right thing. And not tooting my own horn because I'm not the only person at my home health agency. But we did just win national recognition for home health agencies on our patient survey. So it's called HCAPS, and we just got that. They were going to do an interview, but it's just going to be typed up in the newspaper, which is fine. And we've got our certificate and stuff like that, but it's a pretty big deal. So this isn't from anybody. This is patient and families that fill out these surveys. It's also some of what we have. We have another one that we got that's like from the doctors, different institutions. So it was pretty awesome to get that. And that's because we do our care based on the old model where you take care of the patient, you try to get them to the best physical well-being point so that they can fight off diseases and can cure their own body and stay out of the medical system if they can. So that's how we kind of run things, and it seems to work very well. So tonight's talk, I'm going to go over glucose versus ketones for energy. So a lot of people, when they first hear about keto or carnivore, they are like, oh, I had ketoacidosis, and I'm like, that's a diabetic issue. Your ketones would have to be like 15 to 20 to show that you're in ketoacidosis. I have yet to ever see anybody. I did extended fasting, and the highest I could get my ketones was 7.8. And I felt amazing. I literally felt like amazing. So, with that being said, ketones are a clean energy source. So this is how I explain it to patients when I'm talking about glucose for energy. I'm like, the little kindling that you start your fire with and it burns really quickly and catches everything on fire fast and then it's like, and it's gone. I'm like, that's glucose. Ketones is kind of like a charcoal briquette. It takes time to get it up to temp, but once it's there, it stays there steady longer. That's how I kind of explain ketones versus glucose. So when you eat carbs, those are broke down into glucose. Glucose, of course, enters the bloodstream. Insulin then helps try to open up the cells, unless you're insulin resistant. And then those cells are like, nah, I'm not opening up. I'm not letting you in. So inside the cells, you go through what is called glycolysis, okay, or glycolysis, Krebs cycle, which I love. your electron transport chain producing ATP. So that is the energy currency of the body. Some of this you guys are going to be like, I remember this from biology. So, how the body uses ketones for energy. So, if your ketones or your glucose is extremely low, then the liver turns the fat, stored body fat, into ketones, which is beta hydroxybutyrate, um, acetone, and acetoacetate. So ketones are water soluble. They travel in the blood to fuel the brain, muscles, and other tissues. Now there are a few tissues in the body, red blood cells, they don't have mitochondria, so they have got to have glucose. Also, small areas of the brain and the medullary of the kidney needs to have a bit of glucose, but you don't have to take it in here because your liver will produce that through gluconeogenesis because our body is smart. So, ketones, they bypass needing any insulin to provide a steady, very clean, efficient, less oxidative stress than glucose type energy. So, what's best? Glucose is best for like right this second, quick energy, but it's going to spike your insulin and you're going to have those ups and downs, which are not healthy. In an emergency situation where somebody's bottomed out, that's one thing. But otherwise, that's not what I would do. Ketones are definitely more stable. They reduce inflammation and they improve mitochondrial efficiency. So, ketones are generally more efficient. They're also protective. So, especially long term. So, you've got people that I know, Kelly Hogan, 15 years. Dr. Baker, I think, is 9, 10. I'm not even sure. I mean, long time. Ken Berry is like a little bit longer than me. So, I think he's close to 8. Um, Maggie, everybody knows Maggie. We're talking like 60 some years that she's been doing this. So we know that this can be done long term. And if we look at our ancestors way back, it was done and we did survive. Otherwise, we all wouldn't be here. So, like I said, there are a few areas that do need the glucose, but our bodies will produce that. Our liver will produce it when the need arises. Most of the brain actually runs beautifully on ketones. So if you don't eat carbs, the glucose is going to come from gluconeogenesis from the liver. So it uses amino acids, it uses glycerol from the fat breakdown. So even on zero carb, your body makes all the glucose it needs. And we know this because when you test your blood sugar, you still have glucose in your bloodstream. Now, I run around 55, 50, sometimes 60, but I've been doing this a long time in keto prior to that. But that I run perfectly on that. I can run, I can do my exercises, I can do whatever I want to do, sprinting, and I have no issues with not having enough energy because I go into those stores. Um, so the question is always like put to me, can humans live without taking in carbohydrates? And like, yes. Historically, the Inuit, the Maasai, the Plains Native Indians, they thrived almost completely on animal-based products. Now, they did eat some berries and they did eat some root vegetables that were here, but a lot of the stuff that's here now was not here then. There are several studies, so if you want to listen to this and write it down or come back and listen to it. So there are clinical studies, Virta, VIRTA, Virta health trials with ketogenic carnivore adjacent diets, reversed type 2 diabetes, and improved all heart markers. So that's one. Stephenson, which is, I'm going to spell it, STEFANSSON apostrophe S, 1928 Bellevue experiment. These people lived on meat and fat for a whole year and stayed completely healthy and actually improved issues. When it comes to anthropology, pre-agriculture humans ate mainly meat foods, hunter-gatherer evidence. So, of course, we have more modern anecdotal case series, large communities such as Carnivore MD, zeroing in on health groups, they show long-term success. And as I always tell people, it's N equals 1 experiment to see what works best for you. Um, a lot of people can eat keto, and I think if they stay clean, they're probably okay. I cannot do that. Every once in a while, I'm like, I would really like the other day, I was like, man, I wonder if I'm lacking some nutrient because I was like, a sweet potato just with butter sounded so good. And we have two sweet potatoes out there. And I got home and I was like, no, because the last time I took a bite of a sweet potato, which, like I said, it was just butter years ago. And I remember how bad my knees ached. And I'm like, nope, nope, I'll take a supplement. I'm like, I'm not doing this to my knees. So let's go over some of the myths. But before we do that, let me just check real quick, see who is here. I don't want to leave anybody out. Hey, T. Hey, Tara. Good. I'm glad. Be safe driving. Free Thinker is here. T said, congratulations. Good evening, Laura. Mermaids. Let's see. And then, yeah, Laurie Yates and Rancher Maggie is amazing. I agree. T, I agree. Let's see. Da-da. Hey, Janice, good to see you. Um, Went over a lot of information about ketones and glucose and kind of how the body works. So I'm going to give some myths now because we all hear these things thrown at us. So myth one is you have to have carbs for energy. I have heard that thousands of times. So the truth is your body runs on ATP, not on carbohydrates. ATP can come from glucose, ketones, fat. Carbs are just one fuel source. Ketones and fat are actually more stable and more abundant. They're also cleaner burning. Myth number two, the brain must have carbs. Well, the truth is 70 to 80% of the brain runs on ketones when adapted. Now, there is that adaptation period where people will be like, where's that keto high and that, brain like, psh. And I'm like, it'll get there, but you've got to get rid of all that oxidative stress and all the crap that's in there. You got to clean house first. So the small portion that requires glucose, like a very small part, the liver makes it on demand when it is needed. Such a smart person who made us. So, myth number three, you need carbs for exercise performance. And this has absolutely been shown. We had some Olympians who are carnivore. I don't know if there was any that was keto, but I do know there were carnivore. The weightlifting men, I don't even know what they're called. But anyway, those guys that lift those great big bars with like 8 weights on each side that look crazy. They kind of look like Alex Jones. They always look mad and like they could throw it through the wall. Um, I know that there was two of them that were carnivore and they did crazy good. So the truth about exercise performance and the carbohydrates is once you are fat adapted, endurance athletes often have better stamina on fat and ketones. Carbs may give short bursts like sprinting, but fat is near unlimited fuel tank, especially if you have some on board, and we all produce cholesterol in the liver. So, myth number four is you need fiber for digestion and health. Truth is, fiber is not essential. On carnivore, most people report better bowel health without it. I can tell you that I will never have another colonoscopy unless I have an issue. I had polyps for years, stuffing, trying to get the fiber in, the fiber in, the fiber in. And after quitting that, I've had two and I've had no polyps. So I'm not worried about it unless something happens. If it starts acting wonky, fiber can actually worsen the area, especially if you have IBS, if you have Crohn's, some of these things. So bloating and constipation, And I was horrible as a kid, constipated up till I was 20 until I went keto. And then even in keto, I still had some trouble, but I was a lower fat keto in the beginning. Myth 5, ketosis is dangerous like ketoacidosis. So, nutritional ketosis is 100% safe. That's going to be more of your zero point 0.5 if you have a keto meter like a Keto Mojo and check it, um, to 5 millimoles is what that is called. Ketoacidosis, which is dangerous, is like I said, seen around 15 to 20 to 25 millimoles. And this really generally only usually happens in type 1 diabetics. I've seen it in type 2 who have ruined their pancreas to the point of they basically have made themselves a type 1. And as I said a few weeks ago, my whole career, all of my training, we never saw type 1 diabetes in a 70-year-old that wasn't found to be that way at 5, 6, 7 years of age. Now, all of a sudden, we have people who are, 70, and they're like, "Oh, I'm type 1 diabetic, never type 2, wasn't type 1 as a child, but they have burned out their pancreas and no longer their beta cells cannot produce insulin." Never seen that before. That is a man-made problem. Myth number 6, low carb ruins your thyroid, your hormones, and your metabolism. Truth is, many people see improved insulin sensitivity, stable hormones, and weight loss. Thyroid T3 may lower, but that can reflect increased efficiency, not dysfunction, which is what I found on my labs is actually it's just working better and done great. I mean, my hair's not falling out, so that's good. That's always where I could tell if I was having an issue is my hair falls out. So, bottom line is the human body does not require dietary carbs at all. It needs protein, fat, electrolytes, water. If you like vegetables and they don't affect you in a poor way, I say go for it. I just probably won't be doing it unless they are fermented, and then I usually do about one bite and move on. Physical health. So one of the things you see with using getting converted over to burning ketones for fuel versus the glucose is physical health of lower inflammation. So you're going to see less joint pain, less swelling, autoimmune symptoms tend to calm down, weight loss after time. You've got to do a lot of healing sometimes before that happens. And as with any lifestyle, the closer you get to your goal is, the slower it is to come off. And sometimes your goal and where your genetics is set is not the same thing. So sometimes you have to reevaluate and be realistic as to what you're. So I weigh 160 to 165. Sometimes I'm 158, but sometimes I'm 165. I don't care. I don't care what the scale says as long as my clothes fit well, I'm healthy, all of my biomarkers are good. Stable blood sugar and insulin sensitive. So that means that the cells, when they see insulin, are like, hey, yeah, I'll open up and you can get the glucose in here if needed be. It helps with your metabolic syndrome, better digestion, helps with people who have IBS. Heartburn, a lot of times, will improve very quickly and clearer skin. So, acne, eczema, psoriasis often improve with that. Mental health, steady energy so you don't have those carb crashes and get hangry. And I was one of those hangry people. Mental clarity and focus because the brain will eventually switch to being a ketone burner and loves ketones. Mood stability, anxiety, depression. A lot of people see improvements. This is something also I had where I was able to wean myself off of my medications I had been on for quite a long time. Of course, it takes 6 or 7 years to get that diagnosis off of your medical records, even though you haven't been taking the medication, you've had no issues for 6 or 7 years. Food freedom. So that's another thing is a lot of people, this helps that food noise where you're constantly like, I'm hungry, I need this, I need to go do that, go to the refrigerator, which some people actually do feel like they hear that. Um, if I get really, really bored, a lot of times I'll be like, "Am I hungry? I don't think I'm really hungry. And then I usually find something to do, whether it's coming up with a new product, uh, making up packages to ship out from my website, whether it's working with clients on my website or crocheting blankets for my patients. I keep myself busy doing something. And that tends to be like, yeah, I wasn't really hungry. It was literally just boredom. Chronic conditions that we see major reversal, autoimmune issues such as rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, Hashimoto's. Um, and of course, they want to say remission. But because if you go back to eating the bad stuff, those are coming back. But that is with anything, whether it's high blood pressure or anything else. If you fix what is causing it and then you go back to what caused it the first time, it's going to come back. So then you have to decide what's important. Neurological conditions, some report benefits with migraines, seizures, and even Parkinson's. I would also add Alzheimer's. I have seen this firsthand work with Alzheimer's patients. The reason that it talks about the seizures, if you look up in the early 1920s, many of the large hospital, university hospitals that they had were using the ketogenic diet for children who had epilepsy until Dilantin was produced and put on the market. Gut healing. So, removing plant irritants helps leaky gut and IBD, irritable bowel disease, in many, many cases. Um, Performance and longevity. So, muscle preservation. Protein rich diets can help prevent sarcopenia. That's that age related muscle loss that we do not want. We don't want it due to our diet. We don't want it due to medicines and shots that we take either. Hormone balance, stable insulin, better testosterone, and improved satiety signals, which are leptin and ghrelin. Longevity support. So it lowers chronic disease risk tied to high carb seed oils. And I really think seed oils are probably the bigger evil out of some of the carbs. I think if some of those carbs didn't have the seed oils, yeah, they're going to be the high carbs, but the oxidative stress with the seed oils is just multifactorial as to what it causes. So, carnivore works partly because it's an elimination diet. It cuts out everything that is inflammatory, leaving the most nutrient dense foods. So, that is why I do carnivore with the occasional a cup of El Ruderi yogurt that I make. Occasional. I had to cut it down to like a couple times a week because, again, I'm not a moderator. So I was like half a cup. And then I was like, why not a whole cup? And then the next day I was like, I'll do another half a cup. And of course, I started getting issues. So let me see. I'm going to go back and just make sure I didn't miss anything. Hey, Julie. Susan says listening live, but busy in kitchen, lots of cooking and baking. I'll bet I am doing none of the above. Well, but we're going to do Christmas presents with grandkids. So, a laureate is a person honored for outstanding achievement in a field such as science, literature, or peace. Aw, I like that. Lambs, I think I like that. That's cute. Yeah. So, yeah, I was pretty happy. It's one thing to have like let's say you sold a whole bunch of pharmaceuticals in the pharmacy, the company's like, "Oh, you guys are great. We're going to put you up on the list." I would not feel good about that because I'd be like, I'm not really helping people heal. I like that it was coming from people who have been taken care of or family members of those people because they're going to tell the truth. They're not going to sugarcoat it. So, hey Amy in the house. That's right. Heart attack burger sounds good. That sounds really good. So I'm going to go over next week's talk. And I know I kind of hurried through this one a little bit today, but that's because the grandchildren are coming over in 6 minutes. And we're going to have them open up some Christmas presents and go through some stuff there. So, yes. And let's see. You've seen improvement in Alzheimer's patients on. It was actually on keto. So Julie logs in. Yes. So we did a little mini experiment. Our medical director of the nursing home that had a Alzheimer's wing, and we had two halls. So we had so many patients on this side, so many on this side. Nurses thing was in between. And with family consent and the doctors, we went keto with these people on this hallway, not this hallway. That included MCT oil in their coffee or buttered coffee every single morning or tea. We did that. What else did we do? We took them off of statins and we took them off omeprazole at the same time. So those things were taken away. Um, and the biggest one, the one that just I will go to my grave thinking that was something that was so amazing that you could never replicate. One of the gals was really nonverbal, didn't talk when her family would ever come to visit. So they kind of didn't come a lot because they felt like she didn't know they were there, and they came from they lived on the East Coast, and they came for a visit. Um, and it was probably 5 months into this experiment we did for 6 months, and she had actually had a good day. I had my index cards out because I would take a lot of them into the kitchenette area that was for the residents. It was activities room, I guess is what they called it. And we would make cookies and cakes and egg noodles and all kinds of stuff that they remembered. We'd put gloves on and they'd make that stuff, and we'd bake it or cook it or whatever it was. And my kids would help with that. When they were younger, they would go a lot. And anyway, she literally was like, I need a card. And I was like, okay. And so I handed her an index card and a pen, and she wrote out, and I think it was called a continental coffee ring. I don't know. Anyway, she wrote out this elaborate recipe, on this card. And I was like, that's awesome. So I was like, note to self, hang on to that in case they come back for a visit. If I'm here, I'll make sure they get that. And so I just put it in my locker up on the top shelf. And then a month later, the doctor said, well, we really shouldn't do anything past 6 months. We're going to stop the experiment basically. Um, and then put the patients back on the statin, put the patients back on omeprazole, and they went back to what you see people fed in the hospital, nursing homes, and prisons and schools. It's peasant food and junk. And very quickly, a lot of everybody, they all kind of went back to where they had been. Um, anyway, sometime down the road, that family came for a visit, and they were, in talking with trying to get her to talk. And I was like, wait a minute, I've got your card. I've got something for you. And I went in and grabbed it out of my locker and gave it to them. And they were like, we've been trying to get that from her for like 5 years. She had just progressed so far that, she hadn't been able to give that to them. And even though she that day was right back where she was, I was like, for one day, it's kind of like the notebook where everything was there for her to be able to write that out. And I thought, that's priceless. It doesn't matter. That's one of the best things that I ever saw witnessed happen. Um, and I have home health patients that I've had whose families have decided to do keto, MCT oil, worked with their doctors of getting off of statins, getting off omeprazole, and getting off of anticholinergics, which are like diphenhydramine, most of your bladder uh, medications like oxybutynin, things like that. All of those kind of mess with acetylcholine and brain activity. So anyway, um, yeah. So the best thing is try to just stay away from those if you can. Let's see. Yeah, Julie, this is the same nursing home and the same medical director that in 2021, 2020, whenever the craziness started, also with the permission of the family, we would do hydroxychloroquine, vitamin C, uh, K2D3, zinc, and 20 minutes of sunlight every day. The day they were diagnosed with COVID, and we would start that protocol and did the 5-day series of the hydroxychloroquine and then ivermectin up until you couldn't get it from the pharmacy because it's dangerous. But every patient that we had using that did great. So someday I'll go into the story of what happened to this doctor's friend who actually worked at the CDC, and we gave him lots of evidence and stuff. And I'll go into that story someday, but that's more for our tinfoil hat people. But it really did happen. Let's see, free thinker. Thank you. Yes, I hope you guys all have a wonderful Christmas. Rema- yeah, yeah, Amy, I'm sure she does because those medications block acetylcholine. And, acetylcholine being blocked in the stomach, that's one thing, but those cross the blood brain barrier, all three of them. And acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter that allows the sides of the brains to talk to each other and for the information to get through. So when you break those down and you're taking the statin that doesn't allow you to remyelinate those areas, that's what's going to happen every time. You're either going to have Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, ALS, MS. So, anyway, let's go over next week's thing. I'm a tinfoil hat person. Yeah, me too. So, next week's talk is going to be over one of my favorite organs in the body. It's not my favorite organ. Oh, you guys are dirty minded. Anyway, the pancreas. So, it is one of the most underrated organs in the body, but I love the pancreas. I talk about it almost every single day. It comes up in my talk with either a client or with my patients. Uh, so yes, so that will be next Monday's talk, and so I won't see you guys unless something comes up and I decide to jump on here and do something crazy, which can happen. So anyway, hey Brian, Merry Christmas to everybody, and yes, definitely eat meat. So everybody have a wonderful Christmas season, and I will be back to see you guys next Monday. And what is that date? 12/29. So we're still in 2025. All right. I will see you guys later. And as I always say, meet, heat, eat, and repeat. See ya.